Good
Yeah.
now?
No, actually, when we came back from India, the Wi-Fi wasn't recharged, I guess. There was little bit data.
Okay, so let me share the screen. Just 1 second. Yes, I gave you some homework, I believe, yesterday, right?
Yes, sir.
Did anyone find the time to go back and find things?
Yes, sir.
You did? Okay. Yes, so basically the homework was, can you see the screen, everyone, that I'm sharing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cool. So basically the homework was this, right? This part was the homework. Let's see if my this part. Okay. So who figured out what is immunity, types of immunity, anything related to it? Tell me. What is immunity? Aisha, Mariam.
Yes, sir. I have found out. Wait, sir, let me open my book.
You have found what?
I got it. Um, First, it's what's immunity. Immunity is the ability of the body to defend itself from foreign bodies and from germs, bacteria, and all.
Okay.
And then the two types of immunity are active and passive immunity. Active immunity occurs when our immunity system is protecting us from pathogens,
Mhm.
and passive immunity occurs when we are being protected from pathogen by immunity gained by someone else.
By someone else.
Like not from one is when we are protecting from pathogen. Like we can say about COVID-19, right?
Okay, so let's start in the basics, okay? Because it's important before I start thymus, and it's going to come. So immunity. So Mariam, what is your take on immunity? Aisha says immunity is where our body or a system which protects us from pathogens.
It is a defense mechanism.
It's a defense mechanism. Okay. And so how does this defense
From
mechanism work?
foreign bodies, also from germs and all. I said this thing also.
Sorry, come again.
I said from foreign bodies also.
Yes, so from something which is called foreign bodies. Like foreign means they do not belong to our own.
Our body.
Okay. And then I asked, so immunity is basically the defense mechanism that protects us from foreign body. So I should write protection against foreign body, right? Okay, fair enough. Anything else you would like to add to immunity?
Immunity differs in different people.
It differs, just like any other, like it's true for all physiological conditions, right? Every physiological condition differs for different people, but we just call it for an average human or for a normal human what are the physiological conditions, right? So when I say heartbeat, it's not like every human's heart beats 72 times per minute. If you will see your heartbeat, it will be more or less than 72. It's possible, but that doesn't mean that your heart is not functioning properly. So it's a range. For hemoglobin also there is a range. So that's true for everything, every physiological aspect. And also you're right, it's true for immunity. So everyone's immunity level is different. So you will find some people, if you'll have 10 people drinking from the same water source, two of them might fall ill, but others might not, right? It happens. Same is with COVID. So like the disease caused by the coronavirus, everyone who's infected is not showing same kinds or same severity of symptoms, correct? So the
Yes, sir.
Immunity comes into picture. Yes, you're right. Anything else you would like to add to immunity before I go to types of immunity? Okay, so how many types of immunity we have? What have you?
So,
Active, passive, innate,
active,
and adaptive.
active.
So there are 4 types according to you. All this
Yeah,
I have stated: active, passive, innate, and acquired.
yeah.
So what is the difference between active and passive immunity? Aisha said some points about active versus passive. So she said active is where? Aisha, would you like to give the answer again? What is active immunity?
Hello. Yes, sir, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. What is active immunity?
I said that active immunity. Wait, let me read it.
Okay, by that time, Mariam, what's your take?
Because active immunity is the immunity that is
We are
being
protected from pathogen, right? So I'm sorry to interrupt.
that is responsible by the body. Like the body is supposed to protect from the foreign particle,
Okay,
and then passive is which we acquire from someone or something.
what is that someone or what is that something? What do we
Someone
acquire?
as in infants, they get antibodies by drinking the breast milk of their mother.
Okay, okay. So that comes under passive immunity, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Aisha, what were you adding up to?
I was saying that it is it occurs when we are protecting ourselves from pathogen
So, yeah.
gained by the immunity which is gained by someone else.
See, both in active and passive immunity, the role, the function is same. We are killing pathogens. That's true for both. Immunity means we are defending, right? And to defend, we have to kill them. For-
So, and I mean to say for passive that in that kind of immunity, we we build up our immune system by pathogens. In other words,
Mhm.
I was trying to say this. Yeah.
How is it different from passive? That's what I'm asking. In active also we kill pathogens. In passive also we'll kill pathogens.
But in passive, like how do you say? It's not coming on my mouth. I mean to say, like,
Mhm.
just like COVID-19, we can say, right? Like our immune system was weak, and after getting back, also like our immune system is more strong. Like those pathogen help us to build up.
Sir, that is adaptive
Yeah,
acquired
so
immunity,
you're
right?
confusing between adaptive versus innate, like sorry, acquired versus innate. So acquired is also called adaptive because we have adapted or acquired it. So we'll go into the details of acquired and innate later on. Remember, I told you in biology, we can make distinguish, like we can make classes or we can distinguish things in multiple ways. If I try to divide something in types, so I can say there are 3 types of living systems in the world. One which lives in the land, one which lives in water, and one which flies in the air, right? Terrestrial, aquatic, and aerial animals. This is how early classification used to be. Then we realized, no, it's not the right way. But on the basis of habitat, it's correct, right?
Yes,
Because
sir.
other organisms can live in air or water or land. Like there is no fourth thing where they can live. They don't live in fire. So it's true. But then according to some other basis, like on the basis of whether they are eukaryotes or prokaryotes, we can make different kind of classification. Similarly, for immunity also, it holds true. So when we are uh, trying to make types of immunity, so you're right that first is active and passive immunity. Now, active, passive, acquired, and innate are not 4 different classes. They are 2 different ways to categorize. Do you understand, Mariam?
Yes, sir.
One way is to categorize between active and passive immunity. Now, by active immunity, like I think Aisha was also trying to say the same point, but she was not able to find good words for it. That
Yeah.
the first, let me complete. Like, how can you say, yeah, maybe I'm saying something different which you were not saying, or maybe I'm saying something wrong. So in active immunity, what happens is either the immunity which we have through natural ways, like naturally. Now, in natural active immunity, we can categorize innate immunity inside that. Do you understand? Because innate immunity is the immunity with which we are born. Every organism is born with some sort of immunity against pathogens, and that is by birth. So a baby also can fight infections to certain level. Is it clear? Because
Yes,
it's
sir.
by birth some immune cells which can locate and recognize the foreign particles and can destroy them. So active immunity is either which we get naturally and is active in our body, or we get through vaccinations. That is also active immunity. Okay. Now that's where I ask you to also figure out what is vaccination and what is medication. Did you did that? Vaccination versus medication?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll come to that later. But let me just complete. So active immunity can either come through natural ways, which is already in our body, or through vaccination. Is it clear?
Yes,
Now,
sir.
this natural immunity is called innate immunity. What is it called?
Innate immunity.
Because it's there. Naturally, it was there in our body, right? Vaccination is a type of acquired immunity. Because upon vaccination, we acquired that immunity. Before that, it was not in our system. Like for COVID, people who are vaccinated now have immunity against the COVID virus, those virus variants which for against which the vaccine was developed. So only those against those variants, we have now acquired immunity which was not early in our body. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So innate and acquired is the categorization on the basis of whether it was already present in our body or we acquired it through some outside sources. And they both can come under active immunity, but both are active in our body, right? When we come to passive immunity is something which is introduced from outside of the body. Now, in this, you can have 2 ways. One, like Mariam was, I think Mariam was mentioning that through maternal sources like milk, right? Breastfeeding.
Yes, sir.
So when mothers breastfeed their kids, they don't only give nutrition, but also if there are antibodies present, certain antibodies can actually be present in the mother's milk, which is colostrum, called colostrum in humans, and can actually be passed on to the baby. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Or in other, the other, just 1 minute. Oh, should I forgot that without the mouse I cannot. Yes, yeah. In the other one is where we get immunity through artificial ways. Now, by artificial ways, I mean, what is immunity? Let me just write it here. I mean antibodies. Okay, we get antibodies from outside. Now, to understand both, we have to understand vaccination, medication, and antibodies. Remember when I was teaching you blood group, I told you there is something called antigen against which there is an antibody produced, right? Remember this?
Yes, sir.
So this antibody recognizes this antigen and basically destroys it. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So that antigen, in our case, if we have the blood group B, so the B antigen is present in our own body. So our own body will not produce antibodies against B. It will produce antibodies against A, because that is something we do not have in our body. Is it clear? I think that you all are clear with that, right?
Yes, sir.
So artificial ways of passive immunity, where the immunity did not originated in our body but was given to us from outside, which can be passed. That's why it's called passive. Okay. In this kind of immunity, we directly give antibodies against the antigen that's causing problem. Now, there's a difference between giving antibodies and vaccination, right? What do we do in vaccination? So let's first understand vaccination. And before I go into this detail, can anyone tell me the difference between vaccination and medication? Mariam.
Medication is a drug that is used to cure or prevent diseases.
So, and what is vaccination?
Um, Acquired immunity to a particular infection disease and contains agent that resembles the disease.
No, but this is, so how did you define medication again? A drug which is used to cure or
Treat,
prevent
cure, prevent disease.
disease. Vaccination is also a chemical or a drug which prevents COVID. We always say that if you are vaccinated, there are high chances of prevention against COVID. Prevention is better than cure. That's why vaccinations came. Right?
It was a weakened form of the microorganism or the virus.
Yeah. So where are we killing the, in both case, see, if there is a, okay, let me take the example of COVID and then we'll try to understand. So for COVID, I told you that we have vaccines, no medicines, right? What do I mean by we don't have medicines? So let's say we have medicines against TB, tuberculosis, which is caused by a bacteria. So what is a medicine against bacteria? Any bacterial infection, that's called antibiotics, right?
Yes, sir.
What do antibiotics do? They kill the bacteria, the source of infection. So whatever is causing the infection, you basically kill the causative agent. So if you are killing the causative agent, which is already in our body and has already caused a disease, then we call it a treatment or medication. And for that, we use medicines. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
In vaccinations, we do not kill, like the chemical is not killing the causative agent. And most of the time that chemical contains the part of causative agent itself. It is like training our system to understand and kill that foreign particle. So vaccinations can prevent a disease, but once you have COVID, people who have COVID or people who are vaccinated can also have COVID. There is always a chance if some other variant comes against which you are not vaccinated. So if you get COVID as a disease, then your vaccines will not work, right?
Yes, sir.
We never give a vaccine shot to a diseased COVID patient. And in fact, if the patient survives and recovers, there is no need to give that patient a vaccine shot. Why? You must have heard that if you have just recovered from COVID, you don't need to take a vaccine shot.
Because we already build immunity against it.
So what did you made in your body? What did you synthesize against?
Antibody against that specific virus.
Exactly. So you already, because it is a proof that you have fought and you have recovered. It's a proof that your own immune system has actually produced antibodies against the coronavirus, right? So if you will get vaccinated, it will do the same thing. In vaccination, what do? We used a part of the virus not the whole virus. If we can use a spike protein or a mRNA which codes for that protein, or in earlier cases, we used to, like for polio vaccines, they used to inactivate the virus, like you heat the virus and make it half killed. It's like it's killed, but the membrane is intact. Do you understand? It's called
Yes, sir.
attenuated virus. So either you use an attenuated virus, or you use a part of the virus or an mRNA and just give it to our immune system. Something like which our immune system can take its time. So that's why after a vaccine shot, it's not like from next day onwards, you should be happy that, okay, now I am safe. No, it takes around a month for the immunity to build up, because over time, it will first recognize, try to kill it, and when successfully it will destroy, the antibody which recognized it will be stored as memory. So next time when the actual virus will come, so this was like a false encounter. You made a training encounter or a false encounter to your immune system with the COVID virus or a part of it, and your body took its time, which normally what happens, that viruses when they attack, or any pathogen when it attacks, they don't give enough time to the immune system. Do you understand that? If
Yes,
you
sir.
give enough time to the immune system, your immune system will find a way to kill that virus. But before enough giving that time, virus will just keep on multiplying and hijacking our system and start showing its effect, right? Causing the problems. And because of that, organs may fail and you may get very severe symptoms and you may die. So the problem is not that our immune system cannot find uh, 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 cannot recognize it or cannot make antibodies against it. The problem is with whether we have enough time or not. So in a real infection, we don't have enough time most of the times. So that's why we vaccinate people. That let me give your immune system time. You get vaccinated, take a month's time, produce antibodies, so that next time when you get infected with the actual virus, it will not be able to cause such severity. So vaccines do not uh, confirm or do not say that you will never get infected. Vaccines just say, or the task of vaccines is to decrease the severity of disease if it happens to you, so that you survive. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
So if someone is vaccinated and still gets a COVID infection, that is not the failure of the vaccine. That person, after getting infection, may just have slight fever, do not need hospitalization or oxygen, and can just recover after a few days, 10 to 14, 15 days, which means vaccine somewhere helped, right? So that is the point of vaccination. In medications, what we do, medications comes after the disease has happened. You do not medicate a person prior to the disease. You vaccinate a person prior to the disease, but you always medicate after the disease happened. So you do not give antibiotics till there is no bacterial infection, right? We cannot keep just eating antibiotics just for prevention. Okay, let me just take antibiotics today because maybe I will catch an infection. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So vaccination is for prevention and medication is for cure. And as we always say, prevention is better than cure. So do you understand the fundamental difference between vaccination and medication, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, as you know, vaccination develops antibodies, and that antibodies, sometimes we do not have enough time. We already know the antigen. So if we destroy this antigen, the person may survive. So we don't know the antigen, but we have antibodies against that antigen already with us. So sometimes what we can do is we can directly put the antibodies to give immunity to the person. You understand? Have you heard of antivenoms? A person, when bitten by a snake, you give an antivenom injection and the person can survive. You know about that? Venom and antivenom?
Against the venom.
So, you know what is a venom? Snake bites have venom in it,
Yes, sir.
venomous substances. Who knows the difference between a poison and a venom? Okay, next time. So try finding difference between a poison versus venom. These are just concepts of biology, immunology, okay? So if you have the antibodies already prepared, so this can be used as a medication therapy. Remember, people who recovered from COVID were told to donate their plasma. They were asked to come forward and donate their plasma. Why? For what reason? What do you think the plasma of a recovered person contains?
Antibodies.
Antibodies against the COVID, you know, that's why he recovered. So if we take the antibodies, already prepared antibodies from a human plasma and transfuse it into some diseased, a person who is having a COVID infection, then we can logically think that this antibody, which is already prepared, will go and start recognizing and killing the COVID viruses, right? Because COVID virus will have antigens on its surface against which these antibodies work. So that way of giving immunity while you are treating is called artificial or passive immunity. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Now, acquired versus innate. Let's come into acquired versus innate. Here I told you that naturally with which we are born is innate, and upon vaccination we get acquired immunity, or over time also we acquire immunity. Not always by vaccination, sometimes by our own encounter. Like you got some disease and which was caused by a bacteria or a virus, it's a pathogen, and you recovered from it. That's so you made your own antibodies through that fight, and that is also an acquired immunity. So next time when the same virus or bacteria will encounter your immune system, the immune system already knows what to do. It already knows what are the arsenals and weapons it has to use against that virus or bacteria. Is it clear? Vaccination is one example, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's come to in innate immunity. We are born with some normal cells, natural cells in our body, which actually kill a lot of foreign substances. Okay, can you name some of them? Some things that kill foreign substances in our body. Remember leukocytes? I told you something about leukocytes. Anyone remembers leukocytes, white blood cells?
Yes, sir.
What does it do?
Help fight infections
How?
through the antibodies present in them.
Okay, so write down few things which are directly related to your exam. For innate immunity, which is by birth, also called as neonatal, like by birth, there are certain cells, big cells in our body called macrophages. Macrophages are predatory, like they hunt down a pathogen, a bacteria, okay, and engulfs it and then destroys it. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So it technically what it does, it just goes for that pathogen, engulfs it, just like amoeba engulfs the food. Remember, I told you, you know what amoeba already, right? The way amoeba
Yes, sir.
engulfs food. Similarly, these macrophages engulf the pathogens and then destroy it through enzymes that can just make different chop down that bacteria or virus simply. And for acquired immunity, so there is no antibody production in innate. Okay, no role of antibody. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So for innate immunity, we are born with some things, and in innate immunity also other things come. So there are three things which comes under innate immunity. One is called the cell mediated, humoral, and the physical barrier. You know, our tears are also, they also provide a kind of immunity. If something tries to enter through our eyes, because our eyes are an opening, then something goes into our eyes and we start shedding tears, right? So tears kills a lot of pathogens. Same is with saliva. Our saliva is slightly acidic and also have enzymes that can chop and destroy certain things. Okay, so all these are physical barriers. Same is with mucus. So mucus in the nose is a physical barrier which does not allow a lot of things to go inside the nose. So it traps the bacteria and viruses and these pathogens and prevents it from entering our respiratory tract. COVID can, it's so potent, it can just go through the physical barrier, but still the mask, the use of mask, what is it? It's also a physical barrier, right?
Yes, sir.
We're just not allowing the virus to reach a person to infect the person. That's the point of a physical barrier. Then in the blood, we have macrophages, and macrophages always, the immunity which comes through blood is called humoral. Okay, the immunity that comes through blood is called humoral immunity. Remember the word heme is for blood.
Yes, sir.
That's terminology. And then there's also cell-mediated immunity. In cell-mediated immunity, let me just tell you, which is also a part of innate immunity. So there are three parts of innate immunity. Physical barriers in our body. Keep noting these things down. I will only tell what is important for this section. But when we'll come back to it, I will explain, but keep writing. Physical barriers, then blood mediated, which is humoral immunity through macrophages, then cell mediated. When I was teaching you about prokaryote and eukaryotic cells, you told me that in eukaryotic cells, we have certain, we have an organelle called lysosomes, right?
Yes, sir.
What do lysosomes do?
Clear the cell surrounding.
No. What are they known as commonly?
Suicide bags.
Saddlebags. So what does it do? It bursts, it hydrolyzes, or it destroys the whole cell. It destroys the cell in which it is actually, right? It's like a ticking time bomb sitting, and then you explode the whole cell out and the cell dies, right?
Yes, sir.
Then why do cells have lysosomes? Why do they keep things which can destroy themselves?
To stop the spreading of some kind of infection or virus.
Exactly. And that is called cell-mediated immunity. Normally, most of the times when we were kid and we were born, certain things enter our system, right? Kids also get infections all the time. And in invertebrates, so all invertebrates only have innate immunity. They do not have acquired immunity. Acquired immunity is a trait of vertebrates only. Do you understand vertebrates and invertebrates? I told you about chordates. In chordates, we have vertebrates and invertebrates, remember?
Yes, sir.
So only vertebrates have acquired immunity. Now in kids or in invertebrates, if something enters the cell and starts infecting the cell, then the cell can decide to undergo self-destruction to save the cells of the surrounding. Okay, that is called cell-mediated immunity. It's also a type of innate immunity. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
But in acquired immunity, the most important players are B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. B lymphocytes are called B lymphocytes because they are produced in bone marrow. The B comes from there, okay? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And T lymphocytes are called T lymphocytes because the T in T lymphocyte stands for thymus. And what is thymus? What is thymus? Thymus is an endocrine gland. The next gland that we had to start, right? That's why this whole story, this backdrop I had to teach you. So the B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes basically they are a part in the production of antibodies. They produce antibodies. So antibodies are produced only in acquired immunity through B and T lymphocytes. And in innate immunity, only macrophages are involved, no antibody production. B comes from bone marrow, T comes from thymus. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Will you remember this thing?
Yes, sir.
So let's start with this organ. Write down. Have we done parathyroid gland? Yes, we have done, right? So let's start with thymus. Write down. In thymus, write down few points first. As you know already, the thymus gland plays a major role. The thymus gland plays a major role in the development of immune system. And now you know how, right?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So that's why certain topics which are not related, but if it's taught in a way where you can connect it as a story in your mind, you can retain that information better in your head. So you don't have to mug up everything, because you can never memorize biology. It's not possible to memorize biology, because even if you just start with one thing, you can write a book on it. Like there are books on just ECG, I told you, right? When you go into medical schools and colleges, you will read extensively about each and everything present in human body. And there also, the way I am teaching you biology, follow this kind of system. Try to make a story in your head about what you are studying and how it is relevant to you. The good thing about biology is everything is happening inside you. Everything that we are studying about biology is happening inside you. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
In physics or in chemistry, there can be things which are not happening inside you, but are happening around you, right? Because it makes surroundings. You understand that? But you can make a story about biology for your own understanding. So about thymus, this one line that it helps in the development of immune system. Now you understand how, because thymus produces T lymphocytes, which is a part of acquired immunity and helps in the production of antibodies. Okay. Now write down. There are some things called thymosins. Write down thymosins. Thymus secretes this. Thymosins. This is secreted by thymus. And write down thymosins play, or thymosins are important for the differentiation of T lymphocytes. Thymosins are important for the differentiation of T lymphocytes. And also plays a major role in cell-mediated immunity. Okay. Differentiate T lymphocytes and provides cell-mediated immunity, like that immunity which is not through the blood but by cell, any kind of cell in our body. I gave you one example above, and this is the other example. T lymphocytes are the cells which through thymosins are differentiated to give cell-mediated immunity. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Also, write down, thymosins also play another role. So their first role is to differentiate T lymphocytes through which they provide cell-mediated immunity. Their second role is they promote the production of antibodies. They promote The production of antibodies. So that's why I explained you the whole thing first. Otherwise, if I would have just asked you to write these sentences, it would be slightly confusing, right?
Yes, sir.
So promote the production of antibodies. Now, if they are also helping in the production of antibodies, which kind of immunity they are also playing a role in? Antibodies play a role in, where are antibodies
Acquired.
present? Where are they present? In the blood, right?
Yes, sir.
That's why we can take them out from the plasma. You can donate plasma and antibodies will come with it. So what kind of immunity is it? Humoral, right?
Yes, sir.
Oral or humoral, because it's blood mediated. So write down production of antibody and also plays a major role in humoral immunity or hemoral immunity, blood mediated immunity. So basically the organ thymus is playing a role in all sorts of immunity. Like basically it's there to develop the whole immune system, right? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now there is, you always must have heard or must have seen or experienced people complaining about old people with having low immunity. As we grow old, our immune system weakens, right? Have you heard this fact?
Yes, sir.
Why? Why is that happens? Have you thought of it? What happens in old people, in aged people, that their immunity becomes weak because thymus is degenerated in old people. So write down the thymus, the gland, is degenerated. What do you mean by degenerated? What do you mean by degenerated?
Less active or like being destroyed slowly.
Yeah, being shrinking and finally like not being like,
Yes, sir.
you understand? The tissue is degenerating and then not functional. So it's degenerated in older people or older individual. So if thymus is not there, so if thymus is not there, then what also will not be there?
Good immunity.
Thymosines, because thymus secretes thymosins. So thymosins will be low, and if thymosins will be low, both cell-mediated and humoral immunity will be
Low.
low. So overall immunity will be
Low.
less. So you can write down the overall immune response becomes weak in old people because of this reason. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So if the question comes, which hormone plays major role or is responsible for weakened immunity in old people? The deficiency of which hormone?
Thymosin.
Thymosins produced by
Thymus.
thymus gland. Okay. Okay, so about thymus, I think this is all you need to know. Now let's start with what's below thymus. Ovaries and testes we have done, right? Yes. So we're left with adrenal gland. So write down adrenal gland. We have started from the top, right? Hypothalamus, pituitary, pineal, thyroid, parathyroid, thymus, ovaries, testes, now the adrenal. Write down adrenal gland. Now what is adrenal means? Added on the renal. What is renal?
Kidney.
Kidney. So where is adrenal gland located?
On top of kidney.
On the top of kidney. Okay, so write down one pair of adrenal gland is present one each one each at the anterior part of the kidney. Remember, Anterior and posterior? As
Yes.
yes. So on the top of kidney, I mean to say. So one each present at the anterior part of the kidney. Now, I have told you for all sorts of tissues or cells, whatever is at the periphery, we call it.
Happy.
In kidney, I called you there is a renal cortex and a renal medulla. Remember the word medulla and cortex?
Yes, sir.
Whatever is at the periphery, the peripheral part is known as cortex. Right? Even
Yes, sir.
cell, the periphery of the cell is called cell cortex. I'm just repeating it multiple times so that you remember these things in biology. So in adrenal gland, there are two types of different tissues. One is called adrenal cortex and the other will be called, towards the inside will be called adrenal medulla. Juxtamedullary nephrons. Remember all these things or you forgot?
Yes, sir. Remember.
Everyone remembers or just Mariam remembers? Mariam speaks for the whole class, I believe. Right, Mariam? Okay, so adrenal cortex. So write down. Adrenal cortex is outside and medulla is inside. First, write down about the adrenal cortex. The hormones produced from adrenal cortex. The hormones produced from adrenal cortex are called corticoids. So commonly they all are together. There are multiple hormones, but they are together called corticoids. And are involved in. So adrenal cortex produces corticoids. That's why the name comes corticoids. It's coming from the cortex. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
And corticoids do the following things. Number one, first write down carbohydrate metabolism. Carbohydrate metabolism. So if they are metabolizing carbohydrate, then what is the name given to carbo or to sugar? Glucose, right? Glucose. So
Yes, sir.
if they are metabolizing carbohydrates, those corticoids will be called glucocorticoids. So write down corticoids. Number one, which are playing a role in carbohydrate metabolism, are called glucocorticoids. And second, corticoids also play an important role in water, mineral and electrolytes balance. Write down water, mineral and electrolytes balance. So these corticoids are called mineralocorticoids. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Water, what did I say? Water, minerals and electrolytes. And they are called mineralocorticoids. So there are glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now glucocorticoids, write down about glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids stimulate gluconeogenesis. Now there is this one term. The term itself explains it. Gluconeogenesis. What does the word gluco stands for? Glucose. Neo is for new. And genesis is for
Synthesis.
synthesis. So what does the term gluconeogenesis means?
New glucose synthesis.
And where does this new glucose comes from?
Adrenal gland.
No, comes. Where is glucose stored in our body?
Carbohydrates.
That is what we digest and absorb. So glucose comes from food. For that, we do glycolysis. Remember, we break
Yes, sir.
down glucose to convert into energy. So if you just understand the terms, biology will not be confusing and you don't have to remember it. You can just figure it out. Glycolysis, break down the glucose. We can only break down glucose when glucose is already present, when we get it from diet. But here we are talking about gluconeogenesis. We are producing new glucose in our body. We are not eating it from outside. Do you understand the difference?
Yes, sir.
And what happens to the extra glucose which we get through our diet? Where does it goes and stored? I told you, which is the biggest gland in our body for storage?
Liver.
Liver. And liver stored glucose in the form of glycogen.
Glycogen.
So when new glucose has to be made, from where we will make it?
From the stored glycogen.
Exactly, right? So you understand gluconeogenesis?
Yes, sir.
It is promoted by glucocorticoids. Now, write down some more points. Um, also, same, the glucocorticoids only. Sometimes glucocorticoids stimulate also stimulate lipolysis. Now, tell me again the word, simple. Lipolysis. Breakdown of lysis means breakdown.
Lipase.
Lipids. Lipid
Lipids.
is an enzyme. Once
Lipids.
you break down an enzyme, it will break down something which gives nutrition to you. So there is lipids. Lipase break down lipids, right? During our digestive tract. But we also store lipids as fat in our body, right? Extra fat that we eat
Yes, sir.
is stored in our body under the skin. And now under the skin, we cannot send digestive enzymes, right?
Yes, sir.
We don't do digestion in our skin. So for that, we need a signaling mechanism where we send some signals for the metabolism. Now, whatever we have stored, we can again bring it back and metabolize. That's why we stored it, right? So we stored glucose as glycogen. Now we can bring it back and produce more glucose so that it can get metabolized, right? We also have stored lipids. So in lipolysis, the same glucocorticoid will tell the body to start breaking down lipids which are stored, not the lipids which are in the food. Do you understand the difference, everyone? This is how biology works.
Yes, sir.
It's very interesting, right? It's very beautiful. And also proteolysis, gluconeogenesis, lipolysis, and proteolysis. What does this mean? What does this mean?
This is
Which is same, breakdown of proteins. We also store proteins in our body, right? Our body is made up of proteins. So when required, we can break that also down. And where are proteins? In our muscles, in the cells, on membrane, everywhere, right? And we cannot do digestion there. Digestion only happens in our digestive tract. So is it clear?
yes, sir.
Now just apply your logic and tell me, when do you think is the best time to start secreting more and more glucocorticoids?
During fasting.
Exactly, beautiful, right answer. So when we fast, when we are under fasting conditions, like, and if it is like long fasts, then the glucocorticoid levels in our body rises. Why? Because we are not getting food to digest, so we need to take things out of our reserve and break it down, right? So that's why
Yes, sir.
intermittent fasting, like once in a, like sometimes after some intervals, if you are fasting, that is actually good for your health because it keeps your metabolism under check and balances. Because throughout the year, if you are just eating, so you are also storing, right? and you are never utilizing your stores, your reserves. Do you understand? So the
Yes,
other
sir.
pathways also have to be utilized. So it's good to sometimes, fast for some time. Like it's good to skip a meal sometime and fast, so that you also give chance to glucocorticoids and all these processes to happen in the body. Otherwise, you will start getting obese, more and more obese, and a lot of diseases will come. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Sir, not eating breakfast and eating lunch,
Actually,
does
it's
that
not.
count as intermediate fasting?
It can, see, when you are sleeping anyway, your body metabolically is in a fasting state, if you think, because in a 24-hour day we sleep for around 8 hours, right? 8 to 10, even 6 hours, but we do not eat or drink in that period. We sometimes drink, we feel thirsty and we go and drink water, but we don't eat, right, when we are sleeping. So our body is actually keeping check and balances and repairing things, and all these processes are also happening. But if you're skipping breakfast intentionally someday, then what will happen is, before, like, by your, why we call breakfast, have you heard of the term? Again, see, my
Yes, sir.
looking at things is, the word itself is explanatory. People ask what is the meaning of your name, just to figure out, okay, your name says something about you. Same words are powerful, and words say something about the whole process. So we are breaking a fast when we are eating for the first time in the morning, right?
Yes, sir.
That's why it's called breakfast. Let's break the fast we were in. So if you are intentionally skipping it, then it's like on a Sunday, you think, okay, today I'll have brunch, a late breakfast and an early lunch, just to give my body a kind of intermittent fasting scenario. Do you understand it?
Yes, sir.
But if you are going on a work day, and like you're going to enter in a hectic day, or you're going to school or college or to your office, and you're skipping breakfast, then it's not good for your body. You know why? Because when we wake up, a lot of things in our body starts working out. It's just like switching on a computer which was on sleep mode. What happens? Have you ever heard, like, if your laptops and PCs have fan for cooling, till the laptop is in sleep mode, it's the fan is not working, right?
Yes, sir.
The processor is minimally functional, but the moment you press the button and bring it in a live mode from a sleep mode, the fan activates. Same thing is for the body. So breakfast is the most important meal of the day, it is said. There's also a proverb which says that breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a beggar, to stay healthy. Do you understand what it means?
Yes, sir.
Your breakfast should be the heaviest meal that you can have in the day, or in terms of calories, most calorific value should be there in the breakfast. But nowadays we do exactly opposite. We do the lightest breakfast, just 2 biscuits and a cup of tea. Then we have a heavy lunch and the heaviest dinner, because we think, okay, what we have to do now? We have to sleep, right? So let's just eat as much as we can and sleep. But it should be opposite for a healthy life. A heavy breakfast, a good lunch, and a light dinner. Because if you are a biologist, you understand how the body is working,
Yes, sir.
right? So if you do not eat breakfast, yes, your body will technically go into a fasting state, which will not be good, because your body needs energy all of a sudden. Okay, Maria. So you do it on
Yes,
a
sir.
day where you don't have much of work to do. It's a Sunday, it's a lazy day. You wake up and you're like, okay, let me have a brunch. So once in a week, you are all allowing your adrenal glands to be more functional. That's all. But don't skip it on a daily basis. And also tell others. And when they ask the reason, give them this biological reason. Okay, good question. So let's come to, what did I tell you? Yes, all these things are done by glucocorticoids. Write down. Um, there is um, there is one kind of glucocorticoid which is known as cortisol. Like in gluco, it's a corticoid hormone called cortisol. Right here, cortisol. This is asked. It's again released from the cortex, adrenal cortex here, and cortisol helps in, write down, it helps in producing anti-inflammatory reactions. Producing anti-inflammatory reactions and suppress the immune system. It is doing opposite of what thymus was doing. Do you understand? We need inflammatory reactions. Whenever an infection happens to the body, our body shows a reaction against it, which is called inflammation. So infection is from outside, inflammation is from the body. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
But sometimes this inflammation is not good for us. And hyper exaggerated immune system, causes allergy. Have you heard of the term allergy? What is allergies? Some people have allergies against dust. Now, dust is not a good thing, but most of the time that dust particle is taken care of by the mucus, right? In a normal person. Even if it gets into a respiratory tract, it will be, thrown out by the mucus, or it will just get trapped there. Or if it goes into our bloodstream, our macrophages will eat them, like digest them. Some people have allergies from pollen grains, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, this allergy is not good for body because it is just without a reason, it's a hyper exaggerated immune response. So you do not need to show an immune response against a pollen grain. A pollen grain, even if it goes inside your body, it's not going to do anything harmful, right? But yes, a lot of pollen grain should not. You should not just inhale pollen grain, because that is something which will cause problem. But 1 or 2 grains going into the nose does not cause problem to normal people. But some people always stay away from flowers because they cannot smell flower, because if any pollen grain goes into their body, they will show a hyper exaggerated response of the immune system, which is called allergy. So write down, allergy is, because this topic came, so I'm just telling you, allergy is hyper exaggerated allergy. Hyper exaggerated response of immune system, which is not good. And sometimes we need to give people some anti-inflammatory drugs. Like, we do not want the body to show inflammation. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
And we want to suppress the immune system. Calm down, go back to sleep. We don't need you right now. And those are cortisols. Write down cortisols. You have written it down, right? Suppress the immune system.
Yes, sir.
Causes anti-inflammatory reaction and suppress the immune system. So we give cortisols in a lot of allergic conditions. Okay. Okay, cool. And there's also something that adrenal gland secretes, which is called aldosterone. Aldosterone. That is also asked. Write down aldosterone. Aldosterone. So cortisol is an example of glucocorticoids. Okay. It comes under glucocorticoids and broadly under corticoids. Aldosterone comes under mineralocorticoids. It is the most important mineralocorticoid in our body. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Both of them comes under corticoids and both are released from adrenal cortex, right? Now write down aldosterone stimulates the reabsorption. Aldosterone, because mineralocorticoids play a role in regulation of minerals and electrolytes, right? And which organ is the most favorite organ from where we can regulate minerals in our body, minerals and electrolytes? Let me give you a hint. We have already studied that organ.
Kidney.
Perfect. Kidneys, nephrons, the DCT of the nephrons, right?
Yes, sir.
PCT and the DCT. Nephron is the best place from where we can regulate minerals. If we want minerals, we can reabsorb and put it into the blood. If we don't want minerals, we have excess of minerals, we can just let it go through the urine, right? That is a regulation checkpoint. So exactly the same happens. Aldosterone stimulates the reabsorption of sodium ions, Na plus, sodium ions, and water. So it stimulates the reabsorption of sodium ions and waters. And second thing it does, it stimulates the secretion of or excretion of. So reabsorption is putting it back into the blood, right? Secretion or excretion is letting it go through the urine. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So it reabsorbs sodium ions, Na plus and water, and it excretes out or secretes out potassium ions, K plus, potassium ions, K plus, and phosphate ions, phosphate ions. So that is what aldosterone does. This is how it maintains the mineral balance. Okay. Right. Okay. Now let's come to medulla, adrenal medulla. Was thinking what else. So this all was about cortex. Is it clear? Is it clear, everyone? Am I audible? Hello. Am I audible? Hello. 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 Can anyone confirm if I'm audible or not?
Hello?
Hello. Am I?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Good. No one was speaking. I think Mariam has.
Sir, actually, my mic was getting stuck.
Okay. Okay. So I said let's come to adrenal medulla and write down. There are two major hormones that medulla secretes. Adrenal medulla secretes two major hormones, and you must have heard about both. One is called adrenaline, very famous. You know about adrenaline? Adrenaline rush in the blood, right? So one is called adrenaline. The other name of adrenaline is also called epinephrine. Epinephrine. Adrenaline is also known as epinephrine, and the second hormone that it secretes is called noradrenaline. Noradrenaline, also known as norepinephrine. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So adrenaline, you must have heard about adrenaline. It is also called emergency hormone. Write it down. Adrenaline is known as emergency hormone. Like both, adrenaline, noradrenaline, both. They are together. There is also a name for this together, which is called. Yes.
Sir, I got disconnected. Could you repeat the last line?
Yes, Mariam.
Reabsorption of sodium ions and water stimulates.
Okay, for aldosterone, you are asking? For aldosterone,
Yes, sir.
I said aldosterone helps in reabsorption of sodium ions, which is Na positive, and water. And it also stimulates the secretion or excretion of potassium ions, which is K plus, and phosphate ions. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. And this is where I have finished adrenal cortex or corticoids. Now I came to adrenal medulla. And there are two hormones which are secreted by medulla, and both are very famous. One is called adrenaline. You must have heard about adrenaline, right? Adrenaline is also known as epinephrine. And the other is noradrenaline, the opposite of it, and it's called norepinephrine. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And both of them together are called, in entrances they are also referred as catecholamines. Catecholamines. This is the categorical name of adrenaline and noradrenaline. They are called catecholamines. And the catecholamines together, they both are known as emergency hormones. Or in other words, in NCERT, I think it's written fight, flight, or fright hormone. So whenever there is a stress, these hormones are secreted in very large quantities. So suppose you are suddenly in a situation where you are frightened. So there are two responses when any system gets severely scared or severely is in a stress or peril or a problem. One thing is you fight that situation, right? So let's suppose you are walking and suddenly a dog comes. The dog starts barking. Then all of a sudden your blood will have adrenaline rush. So there'll be two options in front of you. First will be to flight, like run away from it. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So flight hormone is also adrenaline. So you run very fast. Even you must also have heard stories, or I don't know if you have witnessed or not, but if a person has slight pain in the leg and is limping, okay, it's very funny actually, and it's biologically also supported. A person is feeling pain every time it's stepping, so it's limping, but all of a sudden, if a dog starts barking, the person will just forget about the pain and starts running. It happens, right?
Sir,
Yes,
I
sir.
have heard about this types of tales.
Yes. You know why the person all of a sudden forgets about the pain and starts running? Because this adrenaline rush in the body diverts the whole attention towards fight, flight, or fright. So fright is fear. There are three F's. One is called fright. When you are very, very frightened or in fear, afraid, this hormone increases. Then when it increases, it gives you two options. One is flight, run away from it, leave the scene. Run away. The other is fight. Stay there and just don't give up in that emergency situation. Okay, fight is simple. So either some people show both kind of behavior. Those who are afraid of dogs, they start running, and they will realize even if they cannot outrun a dog, but they will realize that that was the fastest they had run in their life, right?
Yes, sir.
This flight adrenaline rush in the body. And some people just stay there, and like whatever they find, like a stone or whatever, they just stay there and they make the dog equally frightened. Like both just hold their grounds and one is barking and you are also doing something. You understand that? The both responses can.
Yes, sir.
And for all these responses, fight, fright, or flight, we have this emergency hormones. So they are called emergency hormones, or they are also called fight or flight hormones. Is it clear? And they both are secreted from adrenal medulla. So if someone has a problem, or if someone's adrenal gland is removed because of any reason, a tumor or a cancer there, then the person in very emergency situations will not be able to respond in this way. Okay? Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. I think
Sir, the another response when, for example, a dog is running to you and then you just stand still and don't know what to do, is that also a response?
So
She mean to say like when we will wait them and we will just go
yeah,
and
that
stand in front of them. We won't be knowing what to do, right? And then suddenly we will run.
no. She's talking about, you know, the dog is barking and you just become a statue.
Yes, sir. For example, a truck is like running
That is
towards
called,
you, and then
that's called freezing up.
yes, sir.
Freezing up is a classic response and a readout for fright, fear. We always freeze up when we are afraid to nth level. Like we are so afraid that we just froze and become a stone. You know, whenever a mouse encounters a cat, it freezes. Have you seen those videos? Or you know,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
mouse shows three things, mostly two. Mouse never fights back. Okay, mouse is not like isto main, like I will just teach this kid. All mouse are not Jerry. Okay, so basically, mouse either freezes up because it's so frightened, or it flights, it's run away. Only Jerry fights. Do you understand?
Sir, the thing which Mariam said, it happened with me in India, but the difference is that there was a bull, not a dog.
Yeah, see, it's very natural because you can see the bull being bigger than you, muscular than you cannot fight. Then you are left between two options, flight or fright. You also must be knowing, okay, if I start running, maybe it will start chasing me. That fear is always there. So overall, when fear dominates both flight and fight response, then you freeze. It depends which response dominated at that moment. So, and it also comes with training. Like someone who has a lot of training in like handling animals or bigger animals might not freeze when a bull comes, but might look for some flight options. Okay, let me not run, but let me get behind this car. You understand? So responses on the spot, whatever response dominates, you will show that kind of response. So freezing is a fright response, running is a flight response, and standing there and holding a stone or uh, trying to harm that
I've seen it in India a lot. Like they are not frightened and all. They will just take sticks and all. I have seen
that
it
is
many
that is
times.
not that is nothing to do with adrenaline rush. Okay, that is simply called abusing the animal. That
So
has
actually, me and my friend, we both went to eat pani puri, and suddenly, we are eating, and he literally came suddenly in front of us. I was thinking, okay, fine, he's just going to he's just going to cross, and he was just coming near me. I was just freezed up. I was having pani puri,
that is
and
that is just abusing behavior. It is not a response. But when you abuse an animal, the animal shows a response. Either the animal frights and very frightened, and
but we didn't abuse. We didn't even touched or something like that. He suddenly came near us.
okay, you should not abuse animals. Like animals are
No, we don't.
uh, beautiful creatures. They are our fellow earthlings, right?
No, sir, I mean to say, I have seen in India, like when we are crossing or.
That's true not only for India, but like you will find people, all sorts of people every see humans are same, humans a human of Europe is not a different from a human of Africa. It's just how the upbringing is. You will find very sensible people taking care of animals in India, also running shelter homes for India, loving animals more than humans. Some of my friends actually love animals more than humans. Like you say anything to their pet cat, they will just kill you for that. You
Yes,
say
sir.
anything to their own brother or sister, they're like, fine, okay, I'll also join you.
Sir, in my home, it's like animal gets more love than me. I'm saying you the truth.
Yes, animals are okay. So that freezing response just remembered me. I'll just share. I want to share with you one behavioral output in rats. So to learn and study the behavior of rats, we always study this freezing response in rats. So if and this fear circuit is there in the brain, and you can actually genetically manipulate the fear circuit. So there are rats which are not afraid anymore. So these rats when they come in front of a cat, they do not show that fear response. They do not freeze. They just keep going towards the cat. They don't know that I have to be afraid of the cat and run away. And you can manipulate the neurons. And actually it is done live. So if you can find time, go and try to find these videos. They are there. So there is a tube with some electrodes pierced in the head of the rat, and just remember I told you that we can actually tweak the functioning of the neurons
Yes, sir.
or produce current and electricity. So you can just deactivate or activate those neurons, which will abolish the fear circuitry. And the moment you switch it on, the rat will just start moving without any fear. And the moment you switch it off and there is a fear response, the rat will just see the cat and will freeze. Suddenly, it happens like instantly. That happens, okay? Okay, so let's move forward. And so this was about your adrenal gland. I think what else you need to know? Okay, write down about these catecholamines. What is the effect of emergency hormones? That I forgot to tell. So what happens to your physiology when you are under the condition of fright, flight, or fight? What happens? The first thing that happens is your heartbeat increases, right? Does it increase or does it not increase?
Increase
Why? Why does it increase?
because of fear and panic.
But why? Why? Heartbeat? What does fear has to do with heartbeat? Why is the heartbeat increasing?
Blood pressures.
Why? For what?
No, let me say this.
Adrenal
Think like a biology student. So what is the job of these hormones? What these hormones want to do in your body? Suppose you were just, listening to your music and you were just, very in a casual mood, walking down the street, and all of a sudden a mad dog is barking at you. Will you be able to enjoy the music?
No.
No. All of a sudden, even if the music is in your ear, you do not know what is playing. All your alertness, all your senses are focused on the dog, right? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
So the first thing these hormones have to achieve is to focus your concentration, right? And to focus your concentration or alertness, you need certain, what are the criteria of an alert person? So alert person or a deer in a jungle, a deer a wild animal in a wild environment is always alert. We humans have learned to be not alert and can casually zone off and enjoy because we live in a man-made safe environment. When our ancestors used to live in jungles, these hormones were the most important hormones in their body, because they help in survival. So the characteristics of alertness is that all your attention is focused. Your pupils dilate. Why do your pupils dilate?
They are more focused.
Because you want to see everything. In darkness, your pupil dilates. You can do this experiment. Like if you just watch yourself in the mirror very up close, and then put a torch light or a mobile phone light in your eyes. In your mirror, you can see that your pupil in live in front of your eyes, your pupil are like constricting. It becomes short.
Yes, sir.
And then when you switch it off, it dilates back. So in low light conditions, our pupils normally dilate to accommodate as much light as it can to see better. When we are frightened, we want to see better. Have you seen actors, like when they play that they are frightened, their eyes are wide open, right? If I ask you to give me an expression like you are frightened, so the most common thing you will do like something like this, right?
Yes, sir.
So opening of eyes is simply just telling you that you need to see everything more. So you want to get as much light as it can into your eyes. So pupils dilate, okay? You are more alert, and sometimes people get goosebumps. What are goosebumps? Have you got goosebumps when you are afraid or scared?
In result time.
Standing up of body hair.
Yes.
Even our hairs will stand up,
Stand up.
right?
They don't stand up, Aisha, because they don't have legs.
No, I don't mean to say stand. I'm sorry.
They become erect. Okay. The body hairs are just erect. Okay. So that erection of body hair, raising of hair is called pileoerection. So write down certain things, what it causes to your body. It causes increased alertness. These hormones causes increased alertness. Second, they cause pupil dilation. Pupil is that the hole in the iris. Iris is the colored part of eye. How many of you do not know the parts of eyes? You know the part of eyes? What is iris? What is cornea? What is retina? What is pupil?
Yes, sir.
You know all of this.
Yes, sir.
Very good. So pupil dilation happens. Third thing happens is pileoerection. Pileoerections means raising of body hairs. Now, not all body hairs raise, only the sensory hairs, basically. So when you're scared, your hair on the scalp or mustache or beard does not raise. Okay. You do not get goosebumps here. It's just the sensory hair. Also, what happens is sweating. When we are so scared, we sweat a lot, right? And to achieve all of this outputs, all of these outcomes, these hormones does the following physiological changes. If you want to become more alert, you have to increase the pressure of the blood so that blood goes to each and every part and organ of the body and you are alert. You need more energy when you are alert, right? When you are dozing off or when you are sleepy, you don't need that much energy. So first thing is heartbeat increases. Also your breathing rate increases, right?
Yes, sir.
Breathing increases. And what happens? Heartbeat increases, plus it's not like your heartbeat is just increased like multiple beats per minute. You can actually feel your heart pumping so hard that you feel that your heart is in your mouth. There's a proverb, no?
Yes, sir.
Heart was in my mouth, where you can feel your heart beating very powerfully. So also heartbeat increases and the force of contraction increases. So write down the strength of contraction of heart also increases, okay, under the effect of this hormone. And and when our heart is beating very fast and beating very strongly, and when we are breathing very fast, what are we doing? Basically, we are utilizing lots of energy, right? We are wasting, not wasting, but we are using lots of energy. And where does energy comes from?
Mitochondria.
Which chemical? Glucose, right?
Yes, sir. Glucose.
So we start breaking down a lot of glucose. And if that glucose is already present, then we will just break it down. If that is not present, where will it come from? Gluconeogenesis, right? Glucocorticoids also becomes a part. So write down catecholamines, these ones, emergency hormones, also increase glucose breakdown to make more and more energy. So now you don't have to remember everything, but you just have to understand the story, what happens when you are frightened, right? Once you understand the science, you can just make the whole story in your mind. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So this is all I think you have to know. Okay, so let's come to what are we left with? Hypothalamus pituitary, pineal, thyroid, parathyroid, thymus, adrenal, testes, ovaries, pancreas. Yes, write down. We are left with pancreas. I think that is the last one. Now about pancreas, the first thing I told you, pancreas is a dual gland, right? It's both exocrine and endocrine. So it's called a composite gland or a dual gland. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So write down first thing about pancreas. It's called a dual gland or a composite gland. Pancreas, sorry, there is no E. Just here, pancreas. It's a composite gland. And what do I mean when I say composite gland? It works both as exocrine and endocrine. It has a exocrine function and an endocrine function. About the exocrine function, we have already studied the exocrine function. Remember? Remember the exocrine? It secretes pancreatic juice, which is a digestive enzyme, into the duodenum of the small intestine. Remember this?
Yes, sir.
So that is the exocrine function because it takes place through ducts. Remember I told you about pancreatic duct carrying the enzyme responsible for digesting proteins, fats, and everything into the intestine. So that's the exocrine function, which we studied in digestive system part. Today we'll talk about the endocrine because this chapter is about endocrine, where it secretes hormones, right? So write down the endocrine part of pancreas. The endocrine part of pancreas contains cells called islets of Langerhans. Islets, ISLETS of Langerhans. So islets of Langerhans. These are the cells which are the endocrine cells of pancreas. Okay. And write down. In islets of Langerhans, there are two different kinds of cells. One is called alpha cells, and the other is called beta cells. Alpha and beta. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So the islet of Langerhans part is the endocrine part in which there is alpha cells and there is beta cells. Now the alpha cells secrete glucagon. The hormone is called glucagon. And the beta cell secretes insulin. You know about both? Insulin is very much like we have discussed about it multiple times. Remember? Now,
Yes.
what does insulin do? Tell me first. What does insulin do? What does insulin do?
The blood sugar levels.
Glucagon and insulin both are responsible for regulating blood sugar level. But what does insulin do? It increases the blood sugar level or decreases the blood sugar level? Remember I told you that insulin increases the uptake of glucose by the cells. So it goes and tells the cells that see there is a lot of glucose, take it and break it. So a lot of
Yes, sir.
glucose from the blood goes into the cells. So what happens to the blood glucose level?
Increases.
Decreases. It comes down. Okay. So write down first about let's write first about glucagon, which are the alpha cells. So write down glucagon is a peptide hormone, which means it's a proteinaceous hormone. It's made up of protein. Glucagon is a peptide hormone that increases blood sugar levels. That increases blood sugar levels. Now, how can you increase the blood sugar level? Let's say the blood sugar level was something, normal bloods. Let's say it's 100 or 120. Then you have to increase it. How will you increase it, Mariam, Riba? What are the logical ways scientifically? How can you increase the blood sugar level?
Eat sugar-based food.
Okay, but you have insulin. It will come down to balance. I just want to specifically, you can only increase the blood sugar level by eating sugar when your insulin is faulty. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So there is a myth in society that if you are a sweet tooth person, you like sweet substances, you are more prone to get diabetic. Don't eat too much of sugar, you will get diabetic. Have you heard of this thing?
Yes, sir.
It's not true. Yes, if you have more susceptibility to have your insulin go faulty, then eating more sugar will cause diabetes, right? But eating more sugar does not cause diabetes in the first place. Non-functional insulin causes diabetes because whatever amount of sugar you eat, your pancreas will start secreting insulin in the same proportion. If you eat too much of sugar, insulin secretion from pancreas will increase and all that sugar will be sent into the cells for breakdown and to produce energy. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
So a person who's fit and healthy does not become diabetic after eating sweets. So by eating, you can only increase the blood sugar level if your insulin is faulty. So let's not talk about eating. What is the other way? You will tell me the answers now.
More production of glucagon.
No, but glucagon is doing something. Glucagon is increasing the blood sugar level. That is what I'm asking. How? How can you? You are glucagon. Okay. How will you do that? I'm giving you the job to increase the blood sugar level, but not from eating normally. How will you do that? Where is all the sugar stored in the body? Liver, in the form of glycogen. Why do you forget
You
this?
become more active.
No, you just go to liver and tell the liver to give back glycogen so that you can convert it into glucose and put it into the blood. The same thing that you were just doing above. Remember gluconeogenesis under the effect of corticoids?
Yes, sir.
That was gluconeogenesis, making new glucose. Before that, in respiration, we studied glycolysis. So you are clear between glycolysis and gluconeogenesis, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, glucagon does a third thing in the body. See, in human body, there can be multiple ways to do one kind of thing. To digest starch, we have salivary amylase, we also have peptic amylase, we also have intestinal amylase, right? Now, glucagon does a process which is known as glycogenolysis. Now, tell me what does the word says? Does it explain itself?
Breakdown of glycogen.
And when you break down glycogen, what will produce?
Glucose.
Of course, because two glucose, like multiple glucose together make glycogen and get stored in the liver. So you break down glycogen directly from the liver and it will come back into the blood in the form of sugar, and your blood sugar level will increase without eating sugars. So normally, and on the other hand, let's also complete about insulin. What does insulin do? Write down. Insulin decreases the blood sugar level. Insulin decreases the blood sugar level and by a process called glycogenesis. Now, what does this term tells you?
Breakdown of glucose.
But there is no breakdown at all. There is a term
Synthesis.
synthesis of what?
Glycogen.
Exactly. Insulin promotes more and more synthesis of glycogen from glucose by sending it inside the cell so that it gets stored into the liver. If you do not need it, just store it, right? Insulin is just going and telling every cell that, see, buddy, we have lots of glucose. The person just enjoyed a birthday party, ate a very good cake, lots of glucose is in the blood. Do something. Now cells will say, what should I do? Just take it in. Break it down if you need energy. If you don't need energy, convert it into glycogen and store it in the liver. So insulin is just going and giving the cells this bright idea. On the other hand, there is glucagon. Glucagon is going to the liver and saying, this person is not eating sugar from a very long time. I don't know why. So blood sugar levels are going down. So I want to ask that you release some glycogen so that I can break it down and bring more glucose to the blood. Do you understand the story? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So they both are antagonistic to each other. Their function is opposite to each other. Glucagon and insulin works in exactly opposite manner. Glycogenolysis increases the blood glucose level and glycogenesis decreases the blood glucose level. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
That's why insulin is known as a hypoglycemic hormone. What does hypoglycemic means? Again, the word
Low
sugar.
sugar level.
Yes. Hypoglycemic hormone is insulin. So what will be the name of glucagon?
Hyperglycemic.
Beautiful. See, you understand biology now. Otherwise, just to pass in your boards, you will have to just mug up the definitions. So a hormone which brings down the level of glucose in the blood is called hypoglycemic hormone, and just say it 10 times so that you remember it. Now you don't have to remember it.
Yes, sir.
You just know it. Hypo means low, glycemic means, okay, something to do with glucose, and it's a hormone which causes low glucose. Oh, it's insulin. And I know what it does. It does glycogenesis, and it's secreted from the beta cells. And I also know what its counterpartner is, glucagon. That's called hyperglycemic hormone because it promotes glycogenolysis from the liver, right? And it secretes from
Yes,
the
sir.
liver. So if you know the story, you don't have to remember. You just know it. Is it clear about pancreas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We talked about diabetes insipidus. Where did we talk about diabetes insipidus when we were studying? I told you about diabetes insipidus, right?
Yes, sir.
ADH. When ADH is not secreted properly for a very long
Urine.
time,
Yes, sir.
then our body loses lots of water and we are always in a dehydrated state, condition, even if we are drinking water. That's called a disease called diabetes insipidus. Not the common diabetes, which is known as sugar. You must have heard na कि इनको sugar का problem है.
Yes, sir.
That is diabetes mellitus, which we are going to study now. So write down, it is associated with pancreas. And always remember the difference between diabetes insipidus and diabetes mellitus. So in diabetes mellitus, which is in which, write down, the blood sugar level increased sugar in blood. And this condition is scientific, in scientific terms known as hyperglycemia. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Hyperglycemia. Now, if they ask you which hormone is responsible for hyperglycemia,
Glycogenesis.
glycogenesis, yes, no, glycogenolysis.
Yes, sir.
Now, hyperglycemia, but here in diabetes, so, but what we give for diabetes patient, what we give them?
Insulin.
Why do we give them insulin? Because insulin brings down the blood glucose level, right? And a person
sir.
becomes diabetic when the insulin is faulty. Do you understand now?
Yes, sir.
So in diabetes mellitus, write down hyperglycemia or increased blood sugar level happens, which leads to a complex disorder, and the name of disorder is diabetes mellitus, a complex disorder in which what happens in diabetes? What happens in diabetes? First thing that happens is lot of blood sugar level increases. Now, what is the problem? Let it be there in the blood. Remember, I told you if you keep dissolve, if there is lots of solutes in blood, the blood pressure will increase.
Yes, sir.
It will start affecting kidneys and other organs. So that's why in diabetic patients,
They're short-tempered.
they are short-tempered. Yes.
Yeah.
Most of the time, diabetic patients have a high blood pressure. They have,
Sir, I guess
yeah.
due to diabetics, like there is the danger that it will affect the liver and heart also, right?
It
So
will
they are,
it will start affecting every
yeah.
organ, because if you have high sugar, first of all, this is not good for the blood. Second, you also have increased blood pressure, which will start damaging each and every organ where the blood is moving. So if the blood is moving with greater force, it will start damaging the tissues around, right? And also, if you have too much of sugar, then remember I told you that when nephrons filter the blood, they do not, they take, they do not take sugar out. Like sugar should be reabsorbed. Even if they are taken out, they should not be in the urine, because sugars are important. Glucose are reabsorbed right from the PCT, proximal convoluted tubule. Remember? Amino acids, glucose, all these things are reabsorbed from PCT only, because they are important substances in the blood, right? Say yes or no. I'm telling a story.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's very important for a storyteller to have audience attention, or an audience nodding or saying something, because I cannot see you. So my cue is your yes or no. So the story was that because glucose and amino acids were important, remember, blood bargained for it and reabsorbed it back.
Yes, sir.
But if it is too much in the blood, will you think blood will bargain for it effectively? Blood wants to get rid of it. It's too much. Where is insulin? Insulin is absent today. So the class monitor is absent. The class is not in control of the teacher. The teacher will just say, okay, do what you want to do. You understand the story? So the one thing which can keep it in check and balance, insulin, is missing, is not functional in a diabetic patient. Lot of glucose is accumulating in the blood. So as a symptom, the urine of diabetic patients contain glucose, and they start losing glucose through the urine. So write down loss of glucose through urine. Loss of glucose through urine. And also formation of ketone bodies. Ketone bodies are harmful substances in the blood or in the urine. This starts forming up ketone bodies. That's why they need to be given insulin therapy. From outside, we give them insulin so that their sugar level in the blood comes down. So insulin therapy brings down the sugar level. Okay, this happens in diabetes mellitus, the normal diabetes that we know of, most common. So if a question comes, which is a question, actual question from the exam, which hormones play a crucial role in glucose homeostasis? Glucose homeostasis. Homeostasis means a steady state. Homeostasis always means a steady state. So which hormones are responsible for glucose homeostasis? Both glucagon and
Glycogenesis.
but glucagon and insulin. I'm asking the hormones.
Hormone, okay, sir.
Okay. Glucagon and insulin. Okay. So I think that's all you should know about pancreas. And we are left with what we have to study. We have to study the cellular mechanism of hormone action. Okay. So in the next class, we'll finish this part of endocrine chemical coordination and endocrine systems, and we'll come to finish the reproductive part. Okay. Okay, everyone.
Yes, sir.
So let's stop it here because there's 2-3 minutes left and I won't start something new. Any questions? Any doubts? I hope you learned a lot of things of general use today.
Yes, sir.
Please go and tell all these stories to your parents, whoever you find, just tell them, let me tell you why you are afraid and you freeze in front of a dog. And they'll be interested. Believe me, they'll be like, oh, what happens? Tell me.
Sir, actually, the yesterday's question which you said, I asked all the questions to my dad only. He was the one who was answering. I didn't tell him, sir, gave me this homework and all. I just said him, sir asked me that I should ask you what are the reasons and what types of. I didn't say him it was a homework for me.
Okay, so I'll give marks to your dad this time.
No, sir.
The test.
So he said little bit difficult words also, which I didn't add it.
It's good that you have a father